Hey, Facebook friends and family, welcome to the Go Big with Leanne show. And as always, we are empowering you through connection. So today, I've got Patrick Moore back on again today from Crypto What. He was one of my first guests back in May, and he falls into this picture because, everything I like to do is around health and wellness. And I think we all need to have health and wellness and education around finances and what's, drastically changing in our world, what's coming about. And so his last show was Crypto 101. And I will probably cover some of the basics as well, but just, he has an amazing blog. So if you're new to this industry, he's got his website up there. You can check it out to learn a little bit more about him and some of the basics. But I know, Patrick, would you agree that a lot of people are just kind of keeping their head in the sand around this because it is overwhelming to learn and there's so much misinformation about it. Would you agree with that statement?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's always been, overwhelming. It's foreign to people. And if you're not comfortable with it and what is working for you is working for you without problems, then you're really not going to have a need to look for other solutions.
Right. So why do you think now is a time, though, it's imperative for people to at least do some basic education on the crypto blockchain kind of industry?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of reasons, and I think it all depends on like where you come from. And again, thanks for having me back on here. This is a topic where I could talk about nonstop. So you'll just have to tell me to shut up if I start going on a rant. But it really depends on where you're at in this world right now. Because if you're in America and you have a bank up the street and you have a mobile app, then you're not really seeing the need for this. Or maybe you're starting to see the need for this because you're just uncertain about what's happening with the economy. You keep hearing that the Fed is printing money and that maybe you should be concerned about the stability of our currency. That rumor is kind of going around right now. So the first time ever, people are put in a position where maybe the system I'm in isn't invincible and that I do need to have other options. But if you're in another country, if you're in a third world country, if you're operating on a couple dollars a day, and if you are trying to communicate and transact with the rest of the world, you're stuck. You don't have options because you likely don't even have a bank that you can work with. So over 2 billion people are unbanked. So there's billions of people that cannot transact, send money, do any type of transaction because they don't have the technology to do it in the first place. So Bitcoin, for the first time ever, as long as you have a phone and internet access, you can now transact with the rest of the world. So that's really the most profound element of it, is now we can bring the rest of the world and communicate and transact. But there's a lot more to it as well. So if there's something you want me to cover more in detail, or you want me to go on from there, but if you have any questions about that, I can kind of elaborate more.
Yeah. So back to the third world countries, even though they're unbanked, most of them have cell phones, right?
Right.
And so what this technology can bring to them is the same opportunities that we have here in America. To be able to start a business, because without finances, without a way to exchange money, even if they have a service that they can provide, it's very difficult for them to get off the ground. So yeah, that blockchain technology and being able to give these people in those countries that opportunity is huge.
And so to take it a step further, us being in the US, if I send you money, it's the US dollar. And we're using the banks that operate on the US dollar, or PayPal or Venmo or Cash, which are kind of just patches to the system. And they're not really moving the money, but it's moving the digital representation of that money. It looks like you got that money, but really it's an IOU. And because we're dealing in our currency, we don't have to deal with the exchange rate, the fluctuation in value. But when you're dealing with other countries and other economies, you have to factor in all the currency exchange rates. Then you have to factor in all the institutions that are balancing that out, taking the risk of moving that money. And again, they're not moving money, they're moving IOUs. So they're basically saying, in a week, you'll have this money and I'm willing to take on this risk, but that currency fluctuates in value. So you have like dozens of entities charging you a percentage here, a percentage there, a percentage here to take the risk of moving the money into another currency. But then you have the problem of each of these countries having to hold on to the US dollar. Every one of these countries has to hold on to large reserves of the US dollar to make this happen. So there's all this trillions of dollars of cash just sitting in these reserves that can't be used. So then you have that problem as well. And we're in debt right now. I mean, we need this money freed up right now. So there's a lot of problems that Bitcoin can solve, and just cryptocurrency as a whole.
Right. And that kind of reminds me of, when I recently transferred some savings from one bank to another. Okay. We're in the year 2020. Would you think that transfer of money should happen like basically within 8 hours or, in the same business day? Oh, no. 7 days. Someone has my money somewhere, and I'm pretty sure they're using it for whatever they use our money for. In the meantime,
able to invest your money, profit off of your money. Yeah.
And if something happened in those 7 days that I needed access to that money that I was moving around, I would have been up a shit creek, basically, if I needed an emergency. So I think that's, some of the issues that could be resolved with cryptocurrency, because it's pretty instant when you do transactions, or in theory, it can be with some exchanges.
So banks are open Monday to Friday. They have middlemen that operate it. Technology doesn't operate it. Middlemen oversee everything. They get paid to oversee everything. There's lawyers, there's accountants, there's other intermediaries. They all need to get paid to watch your money and make sure the money's moved smoothly and that there's no fraud and whatnot. But Bitcoin is designed to eliminate all those middlemen, eliminate all those unnecessary costs, and it's all done under one umbrella, one system, one currency, so it can be moved over the internet within minutes to anybody that has internet and a phone at Friday at midnight. They don't need to be waiting till Monday morning to be able to access their funds. So there's really a lot of reasons, not just for the fact that we have to deal with these international barriers, but then you have just corrupt governments. People are losing faith in their governments all the time. They're printing money. They're devaluing their currency. And so people have woken up to that game now, and they're not going to get trapped again with useless money. And so we now, for the first time ever, have an out. And that's with Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies.
Yeah. So what do you think is preventing, the average person from taking advantage of that option?
There's a lot of reasons. I mean, it's been the wild, wild west for a long time. And I think the government is finally, maybe even in its final phases of getting out the bad actors. Like just yesterday, they arrested a huge CEO of one of the biggest exchanges, and he's more of a nefarious player. I think he's been doing some kind of shady activities. He's not supposed to be operating in the US, but I think he is operating in the US. I think he's allowed some transactions to go through that through actors that should not be able to do it. And it's been going on long enough. It's been investigated long enough. And I think that there's going to be a serious crackdown, because what they really want to do is, if you look at the cryptocurrency or the Bitcoin market cap, it's $200 billion. And gold is a $10 trillion market cap. So the potential is enormous, but it's such a wild, wild west, kind of like we've got some good institutions coming in, but there's still some bad players left. And until we get rid of all the bad players, the real money is not going to come in. They're not going to risk their money on something that the government hasn't endorsed. It's not backed and insured by, FDIC protected and insured. So this month, or as of last month, really, because now October, but in September, there were some major things that happened. For the first time ever, the comptroller of the currency for the United States has basically said that there will be banks that will be allowed to custody currency for people who don't want to take the risk. So going back to why people might not want to get involved is because they've been told that they have to control their own money. So you are responsible. They've heard people have lost millions of dollars because they typed in the wrong code, or they were hacked, or they revealed their passcode. And so when you are more, you just want to be more cautious about your money and protect your investment. You just might not be so loose with throwing it in this wild, wild west system. And you are going to wait for the big infrastructure to come in and, give it its blessings and say, okay, we're endorsing this, we're insuring this now. And I think that's what it's waiting for. We're getting rid of the bad actors. And I think by the end of this year, we're going to see a brand new landscape as far as NASDAQ and all these big infrastructures that we trust and know that they're going to be offering this. In Bank of America and banks that are going to be allowing you to go in and buy and custody cryptocurrency. I think that's coming right around the corner.
Yeah, I started calling the banks that I deal with to ask them this question. They won't answer.
They don't. They have NDAs. They will not talk about this. I've asked everybody I know that's deep in the banking industry. I can't get the information either.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I'm like, wow, it's like I was asking them for some, I guess it's top secret information because that's how they treated it. I mean, it was really weird. I almost felt like they were going to send an FBI agent to my house or something after making that call.
I mean, it's been planned out for so long. I watched a video yesterday that was like the SEC chairman and the OCC, the official, the comptroller. And it's weird because right now they're having these conversations and it feels like theater because they did this 5 years ago. I've been following this since 2014, and the stuff they're talking about today, they're like, what if we could do this? You announced this 5 years ago. So it's all theater right now. They're planting the seed, the digital cashless society. It's coming. COVID, of course, is a main reason to get rid of cash. People don't want contaminated cash. And plus all the other things I said, they need a reason to transition into this cashless society, having these trillions of dollars freed up from all these countries just for the purpose of exchange rate. And so it's just a matter of time. And part of it is they're not going to come out and tell you. You just have to watch closely. You have to know the terminology and the different vernacular they're using. When they start saying different acronyms on TV, what company's part of that. But as you have to watch it. You have to have the things over time, kind of seeds are planted in your head, and then over time you'll notice some similarities, and then you'll notice coincidences. Then you'll notice coincidences upon coincidences upon coincidences. You're like, there's not this many coincidences in life.
Right. That's I think kind of a lost art in our society is called critical thinking, and because it's much easier to be lazy, and I have fallen into that category for lazy in my thinking, let's put it that way. For a good majority of my life, because when you're raising a family and all that stuff, you're just like, I don't have the energy to research this stuff, to educate myself. But I've realized that that's probably part of the reason why our society is where it's at now, is because we lost the art of critical thinking. So I'm really passionate about, bringing critical thinking back into areas of, mental health, our finances, self-care, all these things, because we can't continue just to sit back and say, oh, the government or the doctors or whomever is just there. I trust them. They're going to do the right thing. And I'm just going to go with the flow. And,
Right.
You have to be aware and notice all those signs and synchronicities that are being delivered to us so you can be prepared for what's coming.
But on top of that, you have to be open to receive it. Because if you're not, then you're just going to dismiss it.
Yeah, exactly.
I have people just as deeply entrenched, have been in cryptocurrency as long as me. They see the same stuff as me. They're just like, no, that's not happening. And I'm just like, how do you not see this? And I've been open to this idea for so long, where they were very dismissive of it, even of cryptocurrency, for a long time, until I said, take this cryptocurrency, go move it into your bank account, cash it out. You'll see that this is all real. And then they had the aha moment. But before that, it was just like, no, not possible. And I'm more of I expect change. I expect improvement. I expect advancements. And so this to me is just the next natural progression. We can already send an email and send data and do everything digitally, but we can't send money yet as fast as we can send an email, as affordably as we can send an email. So, and to think that the powers that be don't want that is also foolish, because they're going to make way more money from this. The elite is going to become the super elite from this, basically. So
Right.
the thing rich don't want to get richer is just absurd.
So what do you say to the people that say a cashless society is all about government control? Do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, I do, because I feel that it's a slippery slope, and it really is. It's dangerous, because we're not just. I can't go pay the kid up the street to go pull my weeds or mow my lawn anymore cash. I have to send him a digital currency, and then that's recognized by every entity in the world, every bank, every government. I mean, it's going to probably be automatically taxed. I feel that there's going to be some inescapable things of this. So yeah, it is scary. That's why I'm like, buy while it's cheap and just get rich off this. I don't know of any other way around it. You can't beat the bankers. You have to join the bankers. You copy what the bankers are doing, and that's how you win this game. It's the only way I can see to win this game right now.
So are you kind of in the crypto world to create wealth for yourself?
Well, I didn't get in it to create wealth. I got in it just as like I was so untrusting of the powers that be, the banks that bankrupted our economy, and the governments that bailed all these corporations out that should have been let go now, which basically as of now, they're finally letting them go. They're closing 1 out of 5 branches of Deutsche Bank, the largest bank in the world, to prevent it from basically going bankrupt and collapsing our entire economy, because they're entrenched in everything, basically. So I originally got into it just because I was fed up with the system, found gold, found silver. I was working with some people, the American Gold Reserve, and just got very well educated on the history of money. And then I realized I was kept kind of the seed was being planted in my ear. Cryptocurrencies, the next thing we have to do. Didn't really know what it was, but I knew I was with people that understood economics. And if they were in gold and silver, and I know why they were in gold and silver, they clearly had a very important reason to be in cryptocurrency. These weren't, dumb people making uncalculated decisions. And so that's kind of where I went. Now, I didn't understand what I was getting into. And it took, I had to watch some documentaries, and I had to have multiple conversations where I had notebooks just filled of information. Like I'd ask questions and I'd explain, like, what are the ramifications of this? How does this work? And then one day it clicked. I was like, this is all the money in the world. This is literally all the money. This is the facilitation of the movement of money. Every bank, every transaction that ever takes place could happen in the Bitcoin environment. We don't need banks. We don't need people, the middleman, all these extra fees, the delays in time, the schedules, all this stuff. It was unnecessary. So that's when I became kind of obsessed with the idea, because I'm like, math runs this. And it's not people, it's not greed, it's math and network consensus. So you can't beat that.
Right. And so I know a lot of people trade cryptocurrencies, and then others just buy low and sell high. Do you find one better than the other?
Yeah, I mean, the market for cryptocurrency is super volatile, and it's very hard to predict. In fact, I talked to a guy the other day who used to be a hedge fund manager, and I picked his brain on the markets and reading markets. And I was like, okay, so I know all these things. I know, Fibonacci and Elliott wave and all these different chart reading indicators. And he's just like, yeah, none of that really matters. And I was like, I knew it. None of it mattered. And that's once you realize that, you're just like, there's certain times, if the market crashes, buy. When it goes up, I don't sell, because I'm in this for the long haul.
Right.
People time the market out, 80 to 90% of people will lose their money statistically. So the people who end up profiting and doing the best are the ones that just buy and hold long term and aren't trying to time the market out. Because I've tried to time the market out in the past, and I've gotten lucky sometimes, but I'm not. It was luck. It wasn't because I accurately predicted something. So I'm just not a fan. I'm just like, if I have extra cash, I buy crypto, period. And I'd rather have more faith in crypto now than I have in cash now anyway. So.
Right. And that's, I think trading, learning to trade is super, super difficult. So I agree. I'm in it for the long haul. And with that said, how much longer do you think, holding, is it a 5-year plan, 10-year plan, 20? Sorry, there's the airplane flying over and my neighbor coming over. So
I'm gonna have a minute, I'm sure. Anyway, they're always over me. It's hard to say because depending on who you ask, some would say like, oh, we should have already been, moon. I've been waiting forever. And right. I mean, I've been holding for 5-6 years now. So I've learned to be patient and just keep stacking. And I also study this to where I'm fully confident in what I'm buying. I've got rid of things that I'm not confident in, and the things that make the most sense to me is what I buy. I don't buy because of some rumor. Like every week a new coin comes out and I'm hit up. Look at this coin. This coin just went up 10,000%. I'm like, yeah, but it just crashed the next day. And you have to time those out perfectly. And if you buy in at the top of that, it's never coming back. So there's a lot of pump and dump schemes. Some of them, they're great projects and they actually are meaningful, substantial things, but they're just, for some reason they end up being pump and dumps anyways. They can't get their message across. People don't believe in it, and then they die off anyways. So I've seen it happen so many times now that I just bet on the fundamentals. Who are the people behind? What are they doing behind the scenes? What progress are they making? What announcements are happening? And there's only a few companies out there that are truly making those kind of strides, that are getting the government approval and meeting with the heads of the world and the bankers and the IMF and the BIS, which is the clearinghouse for all currencies. I mean, it's insane when you start seeing how connected they are at the top.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, the coin has to have utility. It has to be good for something. Yeah,
exactly. It's either going to zero, like the company that which company I'm talking about, but they're like, we're either going to crash to zero or we're getting all the money in the world. So, I'm betting on them getting all the money in the world at this point.
Yeah. I hope you're right on that one.
Even if they don't, they're still going to get a big chunk. Even if they do one thing, right? Which, I consider them to be, and I will say it because, it's Ripple. If for anybody that's listening, Ripple is, I consider to be the Amazon of the cryptocurrency space. They're going to do one thing right. They're going to perfect it. Then they're going to move on to the next thing, and they're not going to move on to the next thing until they've perfected this. And their focus is one of the biggest areas of need right now, which is remittance. So a remittance is, if you're somebody, let's say you live in a first world country or just a more well-off nation, but you're going to like Africa to do work or something, and you need to send money home to your family. If you're only getting paid a couple dollars a day, but your fees are like $10 to send through the bank wire, that's not going to work out for you. So remittances, Ripple's partnered with MoneyGram. MoneyGram's the biggest remittance service in the world. Remittances allow you to send money back to your family, and they've been able to do this in a way where it's pennies basically now. So that once they solve that problem, and there's a lot of countries they need to reach, but then they're going to be going, Amazon started out with books. Now they do everything.
Right.
That is the same type of potential Ripple has.
Yeah, and that's exciting. So if a newbie, a brand new person that's trying to educate themselves, I mean, you have a great website that has a lot of the basics on there, but what else would you recommend that they do to, because again, there's a lot of crap out there. So we need to educate ourselves in a critical way. So are there, I think they're listed on your website as well, but what other things would you recommend that a new person do to get started, just buying their first coins or setting up an account, or, what would you recommend?
So if you go on the website, there's a number of brokers that allow you to sign up based on where you're at. Coinbase is the most popular, but because they're the most popular, they charge the most amount of money. You can choose somebody else. They might not have the best, easiest user interface, but you're going to pay less. So it's kind of like, what do you want to do there? I think the most important thing is to really understand why the technology behind Bitcoin is so profound. And if you don't mind, actually, there's this thing here. I think this will really put this in perspective. I wasn't sure if I was going to read this, but we kind of talked about this here a second ago. And when you understand what it takes to move money around the world, just the number of steps, the pure insanity involved, you're going to realize, like, why wasn't this around sooner? So this is a couple paragraphs here. I'll read this real fast if you don't mind.
Go ahead. It
says, now let's take a closer look at what happens when the cashier swipes your card. With that action, the personal information contained in this magnetic strip, your account number, the expiration date, the billing address, zip code, and the CVV credit card validation code is sent to something called a front-end processor. That's one entity. That firm, one of hundreds now in operation worldwide, specializes in handling payment information on behalf of its merchant client, in this case, Starbucks, and for the bank into which the coffee vendor's sales receipts are deposited, an institution that's referred to within the transaction chain as the acquiring bank. That's number 2 entity. For now, both Starbucks and its bank simply need to know whether the credit card account attached to your card has enough funds in it to cover the payment. They'll deal with whether you actually own the card later. The front-end processor's job is to check that out, and quickly. So it forwards along the information contained on the card to the network of the relevant card association, third entity, MasterCard, Visa, American Express, or other credit card company, which figures out, the fourth entity, your issuing bank, your card came from. Having left imprints of itself on multiple databases already, it's now time for your personal information to move along to the fifth entity, the payment processor. Representing the issuing bank, the one whose name is on your card and manages your account. Once your bank has verified the validity of the information and checked for sufficient credit, the signal goes back the other way. The bank tells its processor to give clear to all association, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Then I'm skipping a couple paragraphs. Then it goes, but it will need to place a request for reimbursement from the issuing bank using an automatic clearinghouse network managed by either the Federal Reserve, the sixth entity, banks, or the electronic payments network of clearinghouse payments. So it could be sixth or seventh entity. So you have 7 entities involved in moving money, not even internationally. I haven't even got to the international aspect of it. Then you start bringing in all the exchange rates, and all the banks have to do that, take on the risk, the funds that have to be held up, the exchange, the fluctuation of the money and the risk they're taking by holding on those large amounts of money. Bitcoin eliminates it all.
Wow.
So you're paying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5% to every one of those entities every single time that you swipe your card.
Wow, that was a powerful paragraph that you read there. I had no idea.
And I skipped a lot of it because it was kept going and going. So,
oh, goodness. Yeah. Wow.
Whereas with cryptocurrency, you're gonna give me a wallet address, and I'm gonna take my wallet address. I can scan it with a QR code, or I could type it in. I'm gonna send it. The network is gonna verify that I have the funds. And then it's going to go to you. And then there's going to be a couple other computers that verified in the network to make sure that this is a legitimate transaction. And then boom, you get paid. That easy.
Pretty cool stuff.
So that's really why I think when people understand what's happening behind the scenes, all the money they're wasting, the lack of, they're losing control of their money. Then you count inflation. We haven't even got to that.
Right.
So keeping your money in your bank is now losing money at an average of 2% per year. So you have $100,000 in your bank for over 100 years. You're basically going to have $98,000 at the end of it, just because you put your money in the bank.
Yeah, and that's not planned to get any better.
No, not with all the money printing that's happening right now.
Right. Yeah.
And then the lack of productivity. You got to factor in, like, you can print money if you have a productive society.
Right.
There's no production happening right now. So we're going to print money and have no productivity. That is a disaster.
Yeah.
No country has come back from this at this point ever throughout history. So we're on dangerous territory.
Yes, we are. So that means more of us need to wake up to what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. Pay attention to the history of money, and you'll start to realize that when governments print money, it's not backed by sound money, backed by gold, which these days also is inflationary, surprisingly. People used to trust in gold as like the best place to store your money, but if gold cost goes up, mining goes up. That means more gold is produced. So that means we don't have this limited amount. 2% is produced more every single year. So that means buying $100,000 of gold means you're only going to have $98,000 of gold too. So Bitcoin is truly the only non-inflationary currency, monetary system, because it stops at 21 million. You can never print more. Unlike gold, where they're going to continue to find gold one way or another. If the demand's up and there's profits to be made, they're going to find gold.
Wow. Well, I know we could talk for hours and hours and hours. I'm not nearly as educated as Patrick, but I've been studying. I got into it, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago. And I don't study it as much as Patrick, but I do stay up on it. So I'm really kind of a nerd in all areas of my life. Whatever, but I like to be informed. So my call to action today for the audience, if you're catching the live or the replay, is to go to Patrick's site, sign up for his newsletter, start educating yourself, share the material with your friends, keep it simple. You don't have to become, a total crypto geek like Patrick, or, you don't have to any of that. Just educate yourself, know what's going on. Get your head out of the sand. We can all make a difference in the world if we all start educating ourselves and go back to the basics of finances. I know one of the YouTube guys I listen to, I think that's the intro of his show. We need to go back to the basics of finances. We need to understand what keeps our economy going. So that's my call to action. And then I think, next time, if I have you on the show, if you agree, I'd like to talk about staking, because that is, that's a whole rabbit hole that we can go into, but that needs to probably be with an audience that has some education. So before we can go there, they would have to get more familiar with the basic concept of the cryptocurrency world.
Certainly, they should own cryptocurrency before we get into staking and know what blockchain is, and just kind of understand some of the basics to it, because that is more of a next level aspect of it.
But just to finish the show, do you think staking is a good option to earn some kind of passive income?
Yeah, absolutely. If you find the right coins and set up the right way, that you can earn incredible income doing it. Just let your computer stake coins for you. The simple definition of what staking is verifying transactions that are happening. So when somebody sends a coin to somebody, your computer is doing the work. It's checking the math, making sure that it's a legitimate transaction. And because you're supporting the network with your resources, it's going to kind of reward you with a portion of a coin or a coin, depending on the value of it.
Yeah. So I think that's an incentive for people to educate themselves, because people are always looking for passive ways to earn income, especially in the day and age that we're in now. So, but like Patrick said, it's not something you just jump in blindly, or you can lose a lot of money as well. So sign up for his newsletter, and then I'll let you know when we're going to do another show, when Patrick agrees to put some more information out there for us. And we appreciate you joining us today. Any final words, Patrick, that you want to leave with the audience?
No, thanks again for having me on here. I always enjoy talking about this, and we went off on a tangent and maybe didn't cover some of the things people wanted to hear about Bitcoin specific, but I think all the things geopolitically that's happening will wake people up to realize that they should just start looking at the alternatives around them.
Yeah. If you want to throw your top 3 picks for coins, we can finish with that if you want to throw them out there.
Yeah, I don't like to go crazy speculative. I like to choose kind of what the blue chip ones are, the ones that have a history of performing. Clearly, Bitcoin is, the number one coin out there, most popular one. Ethereum number two, and XRP. Those are my three coins. And if you're going to do a fourth one, XLM. I think those are kind of, some are going to say, oh, those are horrible performers lately, whatever. Like I said, I'm not betting and gambling on what they're doing lately. I'm gambling and betting on what they're doing behind the scenes. And they're the ones that are working with the governments, working with the companies around the world, and really trying to create an environment where we can move it's the internet of value now. So how we can move value as quickly as we can move data. Companies are trying to do that and working with the governments around the world. That's what I'm betting on.
Yeah, I think those are great recommendations for the average American. If someone's really going to dig into this and do their own research, then there's probably other things that you can win in. But the ones you mentioned, I would totally agree, are the best for those that just want to dip their toe in the water and set and forget it, pretty much. That's what I would say too. So, all right, well, thank you, everyone. You have a great day. And all right, take care, Patrick.
All right, have a good one.